Paul Foster-Bell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Sir, can I seek a split call with my colleague Brett Hudson and a bell at the 4-minute mark?
You may, and you're granted.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I take no particular pleasure in speaking on the Objectionable Publications and Indecency legislation bill in the second reading debate, and I can see, looking around this chamber at members' faces, everyone regards this as a distasteful matter, and it's actually a bit of an indictment on our society that we need this sort of legislation, and that there are people out there, there are people with a sickness, obviously, and a tendency to exploit children through the viewing of indecent images. So, to address some of the things that previous speakers have brought up, firstly, actually responding to the previous speaker from the opposition, I mean, it's a little bit ironic to hear about piecemeal discussions and a non-systemic approach to the justice system as that member sat next to a many hundred-page judicature modernisation bill which systemically reforms the entire justice and court system. But I think this is a government which takes these matters very seriously. She's right about one thing, and that is there is a problem. These images are being created, they're being disseminated, they're being viewed, and they are a form of abuse in and of themselves. So when we hear about the difference between the depictions of abuse and the abuse itself, in a way they're one and the same thing. In fact, the depictions amplify, they distribute, they disseminate, and they record over a long period of time images which I'm sure the victims of those crimes would rather forget than be reminded of whenever those images are circulated. So, sir, there were a few other issues that were raised. Jacinda Ardern asked about the views, I suppose, of those on the committee about a particular issue, and that was the definition of indecency, and why, if we are trying to achieve a focus on preventing the dissemination of child abuse images, why isn't there a prevention of the wider issues coming into play? Well, sir, there are a number of other kinds of objectionable material, and I'm sure our New Zealand First colleagues will raise this because it was discussed by them in the committee. But I actually have no problem with images of bestiality being treated in the same way as images of child abuse. They're equally objectionable in my view, and I think we should, increase the prison sentences to up to 10 years for the possession and up to 14 years for the importation and distribution of such images. I don't actually have a problem with that kind of approach. Secondly, in terms of the Attorney General's role in this, we have moved into a new era in which we don't need the Attorney General to be the arbiter of where a prosecution could be reasonable or not. The police, internal affairs, customs have significant experience in this. We're not going to see, in my view, as a result of this legislation, material which we could consider to be of an artistic nature be pursued by overly enthusiastic enforcement officers. I think we're going to see our law enforcement agencies which provide us with a safe and secure society to live in, taking a pragmatic and sensible approach on these issues. And that's the driver behind the removal of that traditional Attorney General consent requirement, except for in cases of the international and private prosecutions. So, sir, it is important legislation. It protects children in New Zealand and abroad. It does give more opportunity for rehabilitation. As my colleague Jackie Dean mentioned, it gives a longer period of time in which multiple rehabilitation programs can be undertaken by offenders, so that when they inevitably are released, because we don't keep people in prison forever, but when those people are released, it's absolutely incumbent upon us to make sure that all that is reasonable has been done to reform, to remediate, to rehabilitate, and to lead to a situation where those people are not going to reoffend in the way that they have been. One last, I guess, point to touch on, that's the wider definition of indecency in general. Members are right, there is no, in this legislation, there is no one definition of indecency, but there's considerable case law in this area. We are bringing this in to modernise the technical aspects as well as to increase penalties. So it's For those who have suffered from the IT problems in Parliament today, it goes to show how reliant we are in the modern world on the cloud. This is to keep the legislation up to date with the technology that we have in the world today. Thank you, sir.